Hello, everyone. I'm super happy and thrilled to have Dr. Margaret Paul with us today. Dr. Margaret Paul is the co-creator of the inner bonding process. She's also the author of so many books. I almost read all of them. The two famous books of her are the Inner Bonding Workbook and Diet for Divine Connection. Hello, Dr. Margaret. So grateful to have you today.
Hi, Rania. So good to see you now.
Okay. Um, the purpose of this interview or this talk is to like familiarize people more with inner bonding and how it's like a magical process, how it can help them like heal and it can transform their lives. And actually, I am a concrete evidence for this, and I'm an embodiment for this. I have been practice inner bonding for more than, let's say, 2 or 3 years, and it has definitely dramatically changed my life. Can you tell us in very simple words, Dr. Margaret, from the term inner bonding, what does it mean?
Inner bonding is a six-step process. It's a six-step emotional, spiritual, physical pathway that teaches people what it really means to be loving to themselves,
Mhm.
to discover who they really are in their true self, to develop what we call the loving adult, which is the part of us who can really take care of us, to develop a connection with a higher source of love and truth and guidance. So it's just an extremely powerful process that anybody can learn and practice at any time that they need to.
Yes, so it's all about self-love, as you mentioned, and how to practice this kind of self-love. But there are some people who might misinterpret the term self-love and they go to the other extreme, which is self-love means being selfish. So, and actually, they adopt this false belief and they keep working on that. So what would you tell them? How can we differentiate between really loving ourselves and not being selfish?
Actually, loving ourselves is the opposite of being selfish.
Mhm.
Um, it's really about learning to take responsibility for
Mm.
our own pain, our own being able to love, to share love with others, our own joy. Um, Actually, the more people learn to love themselves and fill themselves up with love, the more loving they are with others. One of the problems in our society is selfishness, and it comes from what we call self-abandonment, which is not taking care of your feelings, expecting other people to give you what you're needing to give to yourself, give you the approval or the attention, the validation that we need to learn to give to ourselves. And lots of times people also think self-love is like, oh, taking a bath or getting your nails done or getting
Mhm.
a massage. And that's fine. That's on the physical level. And we do teach people to take care of themselves on the physical level, emotional, spiritual, financial, relational, organizational. But the main issue is that most people have never learned to take responsibility for their own feelings. And so they end up abandoning themselves, and they abandon themselves by ignoring their feelings.
Mhm.
Um, like if you had a child who came to you upset and you just ignore the child would feel abandoned. Well, our soul is like an inner child that feels abandoned when we don't attend to our own feelings and learn from them. All of our feelings have information for us, vital information about whether we're loving ourselves or abandoning ourselves, what's happening with other people and situations. And so we need to be aware of our feelings. And people abandon themselves by judging themselves. Most people learn to judge themselves by being judged as they were growing up, but this is a form of self-abandonment. And another way is that people learn to numb out with various addictions and numb out their feelings, just not feel them. And then a fourth way is basically like if you had a child, handing that child to somebody else, saying, here, I don't want to take care of this child's feelings. You have to do it. So making others responsible for us. And so maybe people can see that the more we really learn to love who we are, to define our own worth, to take loving care of ourselves in all of these ways, we become very motivated to give to others. It's like the cup gets filled up with
Phil.
love. it
Hmm.
overflows, and you just want to give to others. And so it's the opposite of selfishness.
Yes, yes, I can absolutely agree. One of the major steps of the inner bonding process is the idea of dialogue with higher guidance or the divine connection. And you wrote a full book about how to connect with our guidance, which called Diet for Divine Connection. And you stressed in this book two main ideas, which are getting rid of our junk food. The junk food we eat that affects our health, and also junk thoughts, the false
Right.
beliefs we have that that ruin our life. So can you tell us more about the book, and how can we really get rid of these junk food and junk thoughts?
The more people practice inner bonding, the more motivated they become to create a healthy body for their inner child to live in.
Hmm.
It's not so much about willpower, but it's really just really wanting to be healthy. Junk food, the fast food, processed food, all that is very hard on the body. It lowers the frequency, and the two things we need to do to have a frequency high enough to connect with our higher guidance is that our body needs to be clean, which means that as much as we can, we need to eat clean, fresh, if possible, organic food, which is natural for the body. It's what people did, hundreds of years ago.
Yes.
Didn't
Hmm.
have to call it organic. It was just all, it wasn't processed and it wasn't sprayed. And it didn't have pesticides or colors or preservatives or any of those things. And so the more we put natural foods in our body, the higher the frequency of our body. And then the other issue is the self-abandoning thoughts. Like junk thoughts are thoughts like, I'm not good enough. What's the matter with me? I don't matter. I'm not important. I'm a failure. These are junk thoughts. And they're based on false beliefs that we learned as we were growing up because
Hmm.
we may have been told these things from parents or teachers or the media or social media or whatever. Um, but they're not reality because who we really are is incredible. Who we really are is a spark of the divine with our own individual gifts. And so there's no way that who we really are is not absolutely amazing. But this wounded part of us, this ego wounded self that we all develop as part of our survival, is all about trying to control. And so it thinks if it says to you, you better be perfect, you better say everything right, otherwise you're not good enough, other people have to like you for you to be good enough, that it will motivate us to do things right and get the approval we think we need in order to be okay. But when we learn to take responsibility for really getting to know who we are and defining our own worth rather than leaving that up to others, then we move beyond the junk thoughts. Then we can see inner bonding is based on a concept of intention, and that there's only two intentions. And one is the intention to control getting love, avoiding pain, feeling safe. And this is what the wounded self is all about.
Hmm.
But the other intention is to learn to love yourself and share your love with others. Well, that intention immediately raises your frequency. And so spirit exists at a higher frequency than we do. We have to be lower so we can see each other. If we were like spirit, we wouldn't see each other. And so we have to be able to raise our frequency, which we do by eating well and moving into a deep intention to learn about loving ourselves and others. And then people will find that they're able to achieve what I call at will divine connection, which is being able to open to spirit and get the information and the guidance that we're needing at any time we're needing it.
Yes, thank you so much for that. Actually, you were the first one to recommend the books about the highly sensitive person for me. And since then, I started reading more about them and to know more about this character trait. What would you say to the people or to the highly sensitive people who think or who believe that this is like sensitivity is something that is shameful, or they shouldn't, or they should get rid of.
Yeah, well, they can't get rid of it, first of all, because about 15 to 20% of the population are born with a different nervous system that reacts differently to stimuli. And it's actually a gift. In more ancient times, the medicine men and women, the shamans, were the highly sensitive people. In our society, it hasn't been revered the way it needs to be. But it's really important for people to honor their high sensitivity because it enables them to tune into things that other people are often not able to tune into and to be of help. It's like if I weren't highly sensitive, I wouldn't be able to do the work that I do as well as being an empath. Many highly sensitive people are
Are,
also empaths.
yeah.
They feel into other people's feelings.
Mm-hmm.
Well, this is very important if you want to help people to
Mm-hmm.
be able to really feel their feelings, to be very sensitive to who they are and what they need, and to be able to tune into all of that. And so even though it's sometimes hard, like it was really hard for me as a child because none of my friends were highly sensitive.
Mm-hmm.
And so I thought, what's wrong with me? I'm really weird. How come I'm feeling these things? How come I'm picking up on these things? Nobody else seems to do it. It was hard. But once I understood that it's truly a gift,
Mm-hmm.
then I feel very blessed to have this gift, especially with the work I do.
Yes, and especially in putting boundaries and trying to protect your, not protect, trying to help yourself whenever
Right.
you feel overwhelmed. Yes.
Yeah,
Uh,
we can get overwhelmed or we
yes.
can get overstimulated. And
Mm-hmm.
I know when that happens for me, I just need to say, hey, I need a timeout
Yes.
because too much is hitting me at once.
Yeah. Um, actually, recently I've taken a course about the shadow parts, and I surprisingly discovered that the wound itself that we label in our inner bonding process is actually represents both the wounded ego and the wounded shadow parts.
Yeah,
And that was actually amazing that how the inner bonding process can help us actually work on all that. Uh,
right.
and my question, if your time permits, how can we differentiate between the different voices we have in our heads? Sometimes these voices that like try to judge us or like sabotage us, and how can we get to listen to the other voices that actually are loving to us, to ourselves?
You know, that's the reason for learning to be aware of your feelings, which is step one of inner bonding.
Yes.
Because our feelings are an inner guidance system. Our feelings let us know instantly whether we're loving ourselves or whether we're abandoning ourselves, whether we're hearing the truth or whether we're hearing lies. The wound itself always lies, and spirit always tells the truth. And as you become more aware of your feelings, and I think this is very important today in the world politically,
Yeah.
because so many people out there lying. When you're really in touch with your feelings, you can feel it right away. You can feel if you're telling yourself a lie. You can feel if other people are lying to you. So being aware of your feelings, being mindful of your feelings, that's the guidance. That's the inner guidance that lets us know which voice we're hearing. The voice of the wounded self will always scare us or make us feel tense or anxious or depressed or angry or empty or alone or guilty or shamed, whereas the voice of spirit will bring a sense of peace inside and fullness inside.
Thank you so much, Dr. Margaret. I'm really glad we had this talk together. And for everyone, if you would like to access the work of Dr. Margaret, you can access the website innerbonding.com or her podcast. She has an amazing podcast that actually it's weekly, right?
Yes, weekly.
It's a weekly podcast where she presents wonderful episodes. Thank you so much, Dr. Margaret.
Oh, you're very welcome.
Thank you.